There are three techniques to building clay using what's called a hand building technique. One of those is called the pinch pot, and it's taking any shape of clay. You're going to want to take the palm of your hand. I like to round it off to make it easier to work with. And then once it's rounded off, you can roll it in your hands, start shaping it that way. You're going to want to make a tennis ball shape, baseball shape. It's going to depend on what size of pot that you're wanting. Now this one ended up having a fold in it, so if that's what you have work, then that's where I would start the thumb. This is where you're going to take and you're going to press down with your thumb into your clay. Then it talks about pinching using your fingers, or a finger with your thumb, but I like to use my fingers because I feel like I get a more even pressure with it that way. And so when you're using your fingers, you're taking your thumb is pulling that clay out, thinning it out, while your fingers are keeping it and shaping it up. And you don't want it to get too thin. You don't want to get your base too thin. And this may be one of the techniques that you need to use depending on what you choose for your project. Now, the bottom you can see is still pretty rounded off, so you can just tap that down. Then that's going to create more of a flat surface. And then you don't want to get it too thin. If you get it too thin, then it's going to fall apart and not stand up. So if you're trying to attach other things to it, which is what you will be doing, it's not going to work too well. And so when you kind of get it to the shape you want, then you can set it down, continue to shape it, work it up. Now, one of the things you have to notice is that as you're working your clay, you're automatically pulling out the moisture from it. So you do have to keep tabs on that. And that's where when you're working with it, you can then smooth things out. The next one is called the coil method. This is probably one of the harder ones to kind of get the hang of. I always take and pinch off part of my clay, and then I roll it in between my palms from the bottom of my palm up to here. And you're making a round shape, but you have to be very careful because you can actually just fold your clay up. And when you're folding up your clay, then you're creating an air bubble, and air bubbles will make your clay explode. Now, some people, I've seen students who continue to roll in this manner. I like to put it on a surface and then roll this way here. And if you're doing it correctly, because you're moving your hands from the end, from each end out to the, from the center out to the end. And then you want to make an even rope-like piece of clay. Okay. Now you can use that to apply onto other pieces of work. You can use coils to make an entire work. But if it's flat, if it thumps on the table, you have too much pressure from your palm and you have to watch that. That's making a coil. You take off a pinch of clay, you roll it in your palms. That's how I get it started. And then I like to put it on the table. The bigger the pinch, the harder it'll be. Well, it depends on what you're making, but the bigger the pinch of clay, the larger your roll or snake-like piece is going to be. And you want it to be even. You don't want little fingerprints in it. You don't want it to be folded over. And you don't want it to have little folds in it, which will be air bubbles that'll crack apart. The next method, the last hand building method, is to create a slab, which you can do on your own. I like to kind of press my clay down just a little bit. And then there are rolling pins. You can use dowel rods, and you're going to press out your clay. Oops, no, I'm not. You're going to press out your clay, and then you're going to pick it up. It's kind of like rolling out a tortilla and rolling out a pie crust. And then you're going to smooth it out. And this makes great bases. You can roll them up. You can make flowers with them. You can put them under objects. Like if you wanted to put them over a bowl, you could do that and let it dry and shape to an object. You can put paper under it to form any kind of shapes or forms that you want. It can roll up and make its own little pockets. But that's your last method, and it's rolling it out to an even thickness while you're working. okay? Now, the last thing is if you're going to join any pieces of clay together, you have to have the scoring method. So let's say that you were applying, and I'm going to show you one other thing as well. So let's say that you had something that's really large and firm, and let's say that you did something that maybe you were rolling up and you wanted to attach something that formed a solid circle. Anything that you have that is completely solid, you're going to have to poke a hole in it, or it's going to blow up when it's firing, because clay expands as it heats. So we'll have some things around that you can use, and then you'll just poke a hole in it, so then when it's attached, which I didn't mean to go all the way through, then when it's attached, it won't blow off and disconnect. So in order to attach things, let's say you wanted to attach two objects together. Let's just do a coil, because if y'all are doing any kind of coils, then you're going to have to score them. Score them means that you are roughening up the surface of the clay. Clay has little platelets in it, and you have to roughen them up. And a fork works well. Some of the clay tools work. And then you have to score the area that you're attaching it to. And then you're just going to take a little bit of water, just plain water is fine. You're going to wet the surface of your clay where those two objects are going to touch. And then you're going to put them on. And then if you're using coils, then you're going to have to do a little smoothing out. So let's say you wanted to create, and then you can use tools like this, and you're going to take your clay, and while you want you may want that coil to completely disappear, but if you don't, you're just going to take and smooth it out in this manner here. So any pieces that you join together, you roughen the surface first. And then that's how you're going to get it to stay. And you may want to do it from both sides. You may want to leave your coil showing. If you don't want it to show, then smooth it out. If you want it to show, then you're going to leave it attached. So pinch pot, coil, slab. Any solid pieces that you have, anything that's overly large or thick, you're going to have to put a hole in it to keep it from exploding or separating. It will blow up your piece, or it will separate from your piece when it's firing after we let it dry.